Welcome everyone to the Muskegon Community College Lecture Series. It's good to have you, and I'm excited to have our speaker tonight, Daniel Seddiqui, with us. And he's going to be talking on working with purpose. And before I let him go to speak, I want to say a couple of things. First, this is, I think we're in our maybe 22nd year of the Muskegon Community College Lecture Series, somewhere in there. And so it's good to keep this going. The idea is to bring new ideas from the outside to our little school here in Muskegon. And one of the things is I think is always hopefully to inspire ideas and creativity and intellectual curiosity. And I think you'll find our speaker tonight is Mr. Curious. And so I think it's great to have him with us. He's going to speak for probably 45 minutes to an hour and then take questions. So as he's speaking, take notes, come up with a question, make sure you ask him. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer it. You're welcome to eat a cookie, or else I'm going to have to eat all those. So if you don't eat it now, maybe you'll get an appetite while you're sitting here. So get one on the way out, or feel free to come up anytime and get a cookie. Let me say a little bit also. This is the last lecture series we have of this year planned, but who knows? Sometimes things come up. So do watch our Muskegon Community College lecture series webpage, which is through the college. You can just Google that, and it'll come right up. I'd like to thank the Department of Academic Affairs and the Department of Arts and Humanities for funding and sponsoring this event. I want to thank you very much for that. I guess I'll just say a few words, although Daniel said don't say too much, because I think he's planning to say a bit about himself. But I guess Daniel just kind of contacted me and said, hey, I'm going to be in the area. So I Googled it, and I'm like, whoa, yeah, I think I'd like to have you come. You sound interesting. And so that's kind of how I got to know him. He's been traveling, as he'll show you, throughout the United States for quite some time, and has written 3 books. So let me just mention those 3 books. 50 Jobs in 50 States was his first one. And then Going the Extra Mile is the next one. And his last book, Piecing Together America, is right here. And so I'm sure he'll talk about that. So he has also, he goes around and talks all over the U.S. He said he's been in the UP, he's been throughout all of the Lower Peninsula, and then he's finishing up here in Muskegon. So we're really excited for that. He's also given talks at Stanford, Berkeley, Harvard, Columbia, and now at Muskegon Community College. Hard to believe. So we're really excited to have Daniel Seddiqui.
Thank you. All right. Yeah. All right. It's a pleasure to be here. I really do hope that my presence here is valuable for you guys' time, honestly, because you're missing some March Madness, right? Did Oakland win, by the way? Oakland University? I was just there this morning. No? Okay, nobody cares? All right. That's good. No one cares. So I got a chance to go to UP for the first time this week. It was fascinating. How many of you guys ever been to the UP before? Yeah, almost all of you? Okay, all right. Well, it was actually the last pinpoint on the U.S. map for me to visit, and it was quite the feat. It took me 20 years of traveling. I've been to 50 states over 20 times. I actually got the title, the most traveled person in American history. As of a couple days ago, I was on the Yahoo front page. It was pretty awesome to see that because of the UP visit. But I've been to Michigan many times. My first time was in 2009. And I was in the Detroit area. I was working as an auto mechanic off of McNichols Road, not too far from 8 Mile, the famous 8 Mile. And I got held up at gunpoint And I was with employers at the auto shop who were not intimidated by that at all. They actually brought out their own shotgun and said, how about you give us money? So I was like, okay, culture shock. And first time in Michigan, obviously not my last time, but world of a difference from that experience to what I've had this last couple of weeks I've been here in the state. Just came from Oakland County this morning. But I want to talk about working with purpose because there is a time in my life where I didn't have a purpose. I was, at a time I was at USC, I was doing track and field and cross country. That was my purpose at the time. But then now I graduated from college and I did not know what I was going to do with my life. I studied economics. Chose it for the wrong reasons. How many of you guys are choosing your major or your field of study for the right reasons? Can you raise your hand there? Okay, not many of them. You guys are doing it because of what? Family pressure, social pressures, maybe? Maybe it's just an avenue that you're choosing because you just want a job or a career, right? Okay, so I kind of, my mindset totally changed with that. I chose economics because I thought it was the safe and conservative path. It was the avenue of familiarity because of my family, businessmen, entrepreneurs in my family. I grew up in Silicon Valley where entrepreneurship was the spirit of the community. And so I thought I'd choose the business route. I knew it wasn't for me, but that was the path. But I was working with no purpose. It was just to get a degree. The only thing that kept me in college was track and field, cross country, doing, because I love the sport. But as I mentioned, coming out of college, I actually suffered through 120 rounds of job interviews. And I thought I'd show you what my previous title was. I'll show you a video real quick.
Uh-oh. Wow, hot grease. Holy crap. You all right over there, Mr. Daniel? You're looking at the most projected person in the world.
Oh my gosh, you kidding me? Okay, so when that title came out, I was pretty embarrassed. But then I thought, okay, at least I'm known for something. All right, so you'll realize as you start applying for work and getting out to the real world that it's a very competitive place out there, no matter what major you guys choose or field of study. I would have chosen journalism. Absolutely love storytelling. I love writing. I love hearing about people's stories. But my parents said it's too competitive. Good luck making a career out of it, and plus it doesn't pay well. And so, looking back on it, decades later, I was like, I wish I chose that path. I wish I chose that path. Who knows where I would have been, but I ended up doing it in a very roundabout, harder way to be a journalist by now writing books and learning about people and traveling. So I found my purpose finally, and my purpose had become to do a different job in every state. And so when I couldn't find a job out of college for the 3 years, I actually ended up sleeping in a rental car for almost a month, and I hit rock bottom, and I thought I did everything right as a college student, except having that real strong focus and doing an internship and networking and all these things I should have taken advantage of. And it's what you guys should be doing right now is networking in your community, utilizing your professors as a huge network for opportunities and so forth. So I started to be inspired by people who are doing. Like Michael Jordan, for instance, he's a champion, and he had this unwavering desire to be the best, and actually an unexplained desire. Like, let's see, another example is Steve Jobs. He had this unreasonable decision making that nobody could really understand, but he had this purpose that was that he only knew, right? And until it came to fruition decades later. He actually went to the same high school. I actually went to the same high school as Steve Jobs 25 years later, but I was just inspired by his story and building a business inside of his garage, which is actually still preserved today in my hometown in Los Altos. It's a museum, but just these inspiring stories really helped me shape my own. And so I wanted to learn about those who are innovators and those who carry legacies in their communities and build a brand. So I got a chance to make a surfboard recently in San Diego with a shaper, meeting a gentleman who is literally right on the water, and he's creating a sense of community with the sport of surfing by just building these by hand. And then a gentleman there I met making neon signs in Las Vegas. Las Vegas is obviously known as the neon sign capital of the world. It was founded there. It was actually started at a mom and pop diner that was calling workers from the road that were building the Hoover Dam. And then as you go to, and that was just one little restaurant, and now you go there, you can't miss a neon sign. So people like him carrying the legacy of that art. And then I got a chance to make a Louisville Slugger and so forth. Seattle, I learned how to make latte art with this gentleman who brought the art form from Italy to America in the 80s, and now you can't go to a coffee shop without seeing latte art. Maybe you can. You guys all have seen it, I'm sure. But it was inspiring to meet these doers and thinkers and those who are really creating, as I say, distinct communities and cultures. So my story began when my dad dropped me off at this hometown buffet in California, and he said, we're tired of you not being able to get a job, so he dropped me off at this in the parking lot, and he said, don't come home unless you get this job. And so I went in there, asked for any position, even a dishwasher, and they turned me down. They asked me if I spoke Spanish. I did not speak a word of Spanish. They were looking for that and didn't get the job. So I got the tough love when I got home, and I was like in my early 20s at this time. And then I was inspired to do this 50 jobs in 50 states endeavor, and my first try at it was going to the Coca-Cola headquarters in Atlanta. And I was stopped by the security guard, and I told him what my concept was, and he just gave me a phone number of contacting HR. I went through this roundabout. I was on the phone, the 1-800 thing, and nobody was answering. And I was like, no, this is not the path that's going to work for me. So, what really I'll go into the story after in a second, but I wanted to share with you what I learned when I was traveling and meeting people. Of how they chose their career path. So 52% of the people that I polled, I polled nearly 10,000 people along the way, they chose their job because of what they saw around them. So if you grow up in, say Nebraska, you're most likely going to go into agriculture. If you grow up in Silicon Valley, like I did, and stick around, you're going to be probably in the high tech, maybe social media space. And then the other one is social and family expectations. So how many of you guys are choosing your career path because of what your parents are telling you to do, right? So a handful of you. I chose economics, as I mentioned, because of my parents. And then as we go down the list here, it gets dream job to direct path, very low. Why is it so low? I'll tell you a couple reasons. But for instance, when I was a 10-year-old kid, I wanted to play baseball, right? So, but now as I'm in my 40s, I can't even watch the sport. It's so boring. So your interests change as you get older and you have new areas of interest and so forth. And then also circumstances change in your life where you have to go on a different path, new trajectory, or maybe you met a new network and they introduce you to something else. And so forth. So the dream job and direct path is very low because of that. I actually chose my full-time career path as an internship director because of the personal tragedy story that I had. I felt like a huge disconnect from the classroom to the real world. I felt like there was a huge gap that I needed to learn how to close or narrow. And so I created an internship business where students can now connect the dots between what they're learning in the classroom to a career field. And I'll go into many examples of how that is really important. So I love what this quote it says. I found this on LinkedIn not too long ago. If you don't like where you are, change it. You're not a tree. So this really shows that we have choices in life. And there's many times in your life you're going to feel stuck. and you're going to feel hopeless. You're going to feel rejected. You're going to feel like you lost your purpose. This is almost a guarantee that's going to happen at some stage in your life. But it's really up to you to pull yourself up and be resourceful and try to utilize a network of people who care about you, family, friends, and know that there's a new path for you. I like to say that, you know, wherever you are in life, wherever you are right now in life is where you're supposed to be. But that doesn't mean that you just sit back and wait for life to happen, because your heart is going to tell you what you put yourself in, what you should put your energy towards. So when I decided to go on this 50 jobs endeavor, like, that was like my purpose. I felt like this new revived energy, and nothing was going to stop me, no matter if I had zero funding, no matter if I got rejected as much as I did through my econ degree, and I couldn't find a job just on that, and now I'm going to go find 50 jobs in 50 different industries. How am I going to do that? And also I did this during the hardest time to find work, which was the recession in 2008 and 2009. So I had a lot of excuses to actually not achieve this, but I'll show you the steps that were essential that you guys could apply into your own life and your own job search. How many of you guys are like intimidated about the job search? Some of you? Okay. Well, how many of you guys are intimidated by rejection? Yeah? All right. So did you know rejection is actually some of people's biggest fear? Yeah. I actually learned to embrace no's, and that actually, ironically, opened doors. When I was able to embrace no's, my world truly opened up. And it sounds like ridiculous, but a yes is eventually going to come, and that's what I learned. And I went through about 5,000 no's to find 50 yeses in this endeavor. So I got a chance to be a logger in Oregon, which is where I currently live. I actually drove here from Bend, Oregon, which was a remarkable drive. And then South Carolina, I worked on a resort on Kiowa Island. I was a golf caddy, a kayak instructor, all sorts of odd jobs at the resort. I was in small towns, so small that the same sign is entering and leaving, as you see here. I think it was a town of 8, and all those residents were my coworkers as well at the general store. It was a fascinating little town. And then I got a chance to fly or fish for the first time in Minnesota, which is obviously a huge pastime. It's such a huge part of the culture that even during our lunch break, my coworker took me fishing. He took me to the liquor store. I'm like, why are we stopping here? And he said, well, we need to get a license. I said, I didn't know you need a license to go fishing. So little did I know from California, I never gone fishing or hunting or four-wheeling or anything that a lot of Americans do as pastimes. But I was now getting a lot of culture shock as I was going through the states. And I caught 12 northern pike just in an hour and a half lunch break, long lunch break, I know. But he said, we have to throw 9 of them back. What do you mean, you can't keep what you catch? You can't. So culture shock there, but here's an example of connecting the dots with the classroom. So we all have to study history. We all have to study science, math, especially in high school. Some of you guys have to do it as prereqs in community college. But I really just could not engage with my course material or the textbooks, especially in history, just because it just really didn't connect with me until I actually went to the Ozark Mountains and worked with archaeologists and found a Civil War bullet and Civil War like horseshoes and all these different artifacts just really changed the perspective of the subject. And now wherever I travel, I love history. I love learning about the local history, how people got to these communities in the first place. Like in the UP, all these miners were recruited from Scandinavian countries. It was just so fascinating to me. So wherever I travel, I don't stop at every like historic marker as you see on the road, but it does pique my curiosity. Like science, I had no idea what avenues I could take in science because we all have to study chemistry, biology, whatever. And I did like the subject, but I wasn't sure what kind of career path I could pursue with it. But until I went on this journey, so I got a chance to be a hydrologist, which I didn't know what a hydrologist was until I pursued this. As it was in the Big Thompson River in the Colorado mountains, the Rocky Mountains. And then I even got a chance to be a model in North Carolina. So this should show you that anything is possible, guys. All right. I did the impossible here. So I cold called modeling agencies in North Carolina. They laughed at me, hung up the phone on me. I called back, can I at least be a modeling agent? So I help you like place the models into different shoots. Okay, we'll consider doing that. So I ended up doing that as just being resourceful, just get my foot in the door for an opportunity like this to happen. So just being resourceful is really, and fearless is important. You have nothing to lose, guys. You have nothing to lose. That's the way I look at these jobs. You don't have the job as it is now. So what do you have to lose by pursuing all out, right? So that was the approach that I had as I was pursuing all these different jobs. From coal, from mining to now coal mining, totally different careers, right? So from one week to the next, now I'm going from like the spotlight to now like the depths of the earth, 4 miles into the earth. And I'll show you a video of what that's like later on in the presentation. To now meat packing. So it made me appreciate like how meat was processed and how it gets onto our plate and how it's grown and so forth. In Kansas, it's a huge industry. And same with producing oil, learning about crude oil, how it's extracted and compressed and so forth. I learned so much about, so I actually was able to apply my degree in economics to all these industries now I'm having real hands experience in. So that was really interesting. So you guys are probably wondering, how did I get started? I told you I had no money, no support. I was sleeping in a rental car. So I thought I'd reach out to all these different sponsors, potential sponsors. Like I reached out to Jeep and Ford, and I went walking by foot, car dealership after car dealership, trying to market myself and my mission. Everybody said, interesting, I like it. Sorry, can't sponsor you. You're on your own. Energy drink companies, same thing. We'd be happy to give you some products, some energy drinks for the road. How am I going to carry that? You know, they wanted to give me cases and cases of it, but I was like, how am I going to carry that on my back or something? And then GPS, they had or Garmin, they had the response, well, we don't care if you get lost. You know, I was like, okay, well, me against the world at this point. I felt like literally I had nothing going for me, except I had this concept in mind that everything that I was going through was to shape what I was about to experience. And that was to get through all these no's, and now as a kid used to stare at maps, and now as I was older, now I can pursue different careers and learn about industries all across America. So, I'll get back to that in a second. So as I mentioned previously, when I embraced no's, it really truly opened up my world, and I had experiences which I'll just go through a series of videos with you guys. Like, for instance, shooting a gun for the first time in Indiana, and of course, right? And then fly fishing in Montana. And I hit myself in the face with a hook right there. And then wrestling with steer in South Dakota.
They call Shane out of the twin rodeo strength. And a 76-point bull ride for William Davies.
Stand up now for you. Get back in your own.
79, 76, 75. Now your top.
Get your left hand on top of the horse. Like
No, wrong way.
So actually a 12-year-old kid comes up behind. He said, I'll show you how to do it. So I was like, it's a pretty humbling experience, really. I was very terrified it was going to land on top of me, but I could not get it down no matter what. I got a chance to sing in Nashville, Tennessee. Sorry about this. I'm going to show you how bad I was. Young and hearts break in two. Now love will be there. Wow, sorry, I'm sorry, but they were having a good time, right? They were having a good time laughing at Then at the feedlot in Nebraska, they told me to go get the bales of hay. They didn't tell me that the gate was over here. I thought I was going to have to throw it all over. And then I worked out as an Egyptian stilt walker at Universal Studios with stuntmen. They were training me how to fall here. That was like, they didn't want me to injure any guests when I actually went out there. And then I worked on a crew in Indianapolis, and it took me about 12 seconds to change the tire here.
Yeah, you guys form involved a little there.
My employer was kind of, my employer / coach there, he was like, why do we hire this guy? It was bad. Like 12 seconds is bad. You're definitely not qualified. But I actually wanted to like prove that I was worth their time. And by the end of the week, I got it down to 5 seconds. And my employer, he came up to me, shook my hand. He said, if you're willing to stay, we're willing to hire you full time. And we actually won the Indy 500 that same year in 2009. And I bring this up because how did I get that opportunity? It was attitude. Like attitude, you'll realize is everything. It's contagious for the people around you. Your willingness to learn is going to open a lot of doors. They were inspired that I was willing to challenge myself to be better, even though I didn't consider this a career path for me. I actually wanted to be there to learn and apply myself the best way I could. And at the end of each week, 48 out of the 50 jobs hired me full-time. And I went in with zero experience in any of these fields. And I attribute that to attitude, positive attitude. And employers really like to know that you're engaged in the work, you want to better challenge yourself, and you want to be a contributing partner in their place of business. And so I'll show you the 2 jobs that I did not get the full-time job offers in. You would probably guess that, but we'll go through this journey together here. Now I want to share with you the path that I took, the lessons that I learned, and all the different elements that you guys can apply in your job search or your career endeavors. How many of you guys are already like on a focused career path right now? Okay, that's fantastic. What happens if that path didn't work, right? All right, so, and that does happen. And sometimes industries close. Like when I was doing this journey alone in the recession, I was applying to be like a logger, for instance. An automotive engineer in Detroit during the recession. I was applying to do that, but they were laying off thousands of people. So I was pursuing that, but of course there's going to be wrenches in your plans, curveballs thrown, but you just have to be adaptable, and that's the first element that I learned, and I'll share with you a little bit more about that. So I started in California, where I'm born and raised, went to Utah, worked with LDS in a humanitarian center, and then I landed in South Dakota, where I talk about adaptability. So as I mentioned, life is going to throw you curveballs. No matter how much you plan for it, you're gonna might have to be directed on a new path. And as much as you want to control an outcome, there's sometimes in life you just can't control it, right? So I love this quote: "If you wait for perfect conditions, you'll never get anything done." So everything that this lady, for example, she's maybe training for the Boston Marathon, wants to qualify. So she's got to run every day, no matter what kind of element she's in. Otherwise, she could have came up with an excuse: too icy, I could break a leg, my back, too cold, whatever. So this is really showing you that there is no perfect conditions. There will never be a perfect condition for you guys to pursue your path. It's going to be really you having to challenge yourself, being out of your element, and really being adaptable to it. So when I left my parents' driveway and from California, it was interesting because my dad said, "We'll see you in 3 weeks," because he thought for sure I was going to fail on yet another thing. And that actually was a very inspiring words for him to say before I left. I had no fallback. I actually was going to prove that I was not going to be back in 3 weeks. And I was going to do whatever it took, because I really had nothing to turn back to besides more fortress or more failure. I call it the fortress of failure, to go back to, my old childhood bedroom. So again, there's never going to be a perfect time for you guys to pursue something. It's going to be now. It's going to be when you feel like is the right time in your heart. So, but using finances is never going to, I like I said, didn't have any money to start. I actually took a line of credit out because my brother worked at a bank. $5,000. I bought a Jeep Cherokee off of Craigslist, which was the thing at the time. You guys probably don't know what Craigslist is. I actually still have that Jeep years later. It took me all across the country. I was planning to sleep in the back of my vehicle the entire time. But I'll share with you what really changed my life. So here I was at the rodeo in South Dakota. And this gentleman in the green shirt, he said, well, if you're going to be in South Dakota, you might as well fit the part. So he gave me his wardrobe. And he asked me a question that changed my life. He said, where are you staying while you're in South Dakota? And I was thinking in my back of my mind, well, not with you. You're very scary looking. And because, different. He's a rugged cowboy. But I just said, I'm vulnerable. I'm here to challenge myself, be adaptable, go with the flow. And he led me to an enormous ranch, even though I was envisioning something very different. And then he introduced me to his family there. They took me horseback riding, fed me to a steak dinner. And then I ended up staying with them the entire week. I didn't realize that they're going to have meat in every meal. There's meat in South Dakota. You probably know Wyoming, South Dakota, a lot of meat there. And so I ended up finding a host family in every single state, believe it or not. And I never asked a single person either. It was either just from the job side or just having a conversation with somebody and so forth. So this was my Mississippi family. Here in Michigan, it was a Dearborn. I actually saw them last night after a decade. And we were really happy to see each other. They had almost the same meal right there. Big ball of raw meat on my plate back then, 2009, and I was being adaptable and tried it, got the stomach virus, and went to the emergency room. Can you imagine how awkward that is? You just met them, you're trying to be polite, and now you're asking them to drive you to the hospital. So they had the same dish last night. I did not try it. I did not want to risk myself by not coming here to speak. Yeah, So this was my Michigan family. Kansas family had Christmas with them. Southern Georgia, didn't understand a word they said. Georgia accents, deep south. I even stayed with an Amish family in Pennsylvania. And this really shows, I was stereotyping all across the country. I did not think they were going to be open-minded to have me as an outsider. They called me an Englishman. And they spoke different language. I didn't even know Pennsylvania Dutch and everything. It just seemed like I was totally out of my element in Pennsylvania. And I was building furniture with the Amish there. I stayed in Hawaii as a surf instructor. I made cheese in Wisconsin. He was my host family there. This is just to show you, as we stick with adaptability, there's all sorts of life out there. If you guys have driven from here to Florida, you see, just different types of homes, neighborhoods. I got a chance to stay on a resort in South Carolina. I stayed in a trailer in Wyoming as a park ranger at Devil's Tower. Scary experience because the wind is always blowing the door open. I thought I was going to get murdered by a woodsman or something. I had no idea, but some sketchy times across the way. But made syrup in Vermont with this family. Stayed on a ranch in Montana. Adobe-style homes you would see in New Mexico, so a real range of lifestyles, as you see. So that's adaptability. So now we go to networking. Networking probably gave me 70% of my jobs. It was about the people I met along the way. I only set up probably 8 jobs before I hit the road, cold calling, and then the rest I found as I was going. And I would meet an employer, for instance, at a cheese factory, and he would happen to know somebody in Nebraska who would introduce me to a farmer and so forth. So the world is all you've heard about 6 degrees, right? What is the saying? I'm drawing. Yeah, 6 degrees of, that's a really true thing. So I knew that every time I was on a plane, train, or bus, I was going to talk to that stranger right next to me, because that was an opportunity that was about to present itself, right? So I'll give you an example. This is a crazy story. I was in a New York City subway train, very awkward to make eye contact with strangers there. Everybody's buried into their phones or a newspaper, magazine. I happened to see a gentleman who wore a USC shirt where I went to school, my alma mater, and I had a candid conversation with him and told him about my journey, and I was already on state number 45, and he asked me what I want to do in Massachusetts, his home state, and he said, I said, I want to play baseball for the Boston Red Sox. And I was confident because I did all these other jobs. I thought I could pull it off. I already was looking at the tryout schedule and everything. He said, save yourself some time. That's not going to work. And he gave me Bill Murray's phone number, Bill Murray, the comedian / movie star, to be a baseball scout for his team in the suburbs of Massachusetts, of Boston. And that opportunity would never have come unless I just challenged myself to talk to a stranger. And it is harder now to do than ever before because people are so engaged with their phones, and then COVID hit and people are like socially awkward and want to be isolated more than ever before. But honestly, this is how opportunities are created. You have to challenge yourself to talk to strangers. I still do this today. I try to help people. I'm not really looking for opportunities as much as I did in my 20s. But now I try to help the youth and finding their path, as you guys probably know and hear. But it's really important for you guys to try to get off your phone and just try to have a candid conversation with a stranger. You can learn something from them. They have an interesting story. You can swap stories. They could be fascinated with you and so forth. And that's one of the approaches that I learned that really, really worked very well successfully on this trip. Corn farming in Nebraska, just an example. I didn't know how to contact farmers from California. How am I going to contact farmers all the way in Nebraska? It's not like they're listed in the phone book under I'm a corn farmer, right? So I called an association of farmers, and I told them that what I wanted to do, and they kind of looked on my behalf, and they connected me with like 200 farmers that I could choose from for because they needed help during the harvest season. And so kind of like sharing your story and having people be your support system. That's another thing that I learned. Like as I was crisscrossing around the country, everyone that I met became part of my support system. I didn't need my family anymore. They were jealous at this point that I had families all across the country. No, I'm kind of joking. But I started building all these opportunities, and I just said more people that I was meeting, the more opportunities I was creating. Social media, obviously a very viral way of storytelling, more now than ever before. I obviously it's saturated, so how are you going to stand out? You know, so networking is essentially marketing. How are you going to market yourself differently than everybody else around you, right? If you guys are all pursuing the same path, how are you going to be the ones with? How are you going to be selected for that opportunity, right? So you have to find a way to stand out from the crowd, and that's why I try to use that most rejected person in the world tagline, because I got titled that from USA Today. I'm going to market, even though it sounds like a negative thing, at least it's something, at least I'm known for something, right? So let's see. And then, built my own website and so forth. So now we go from Minnesota, very far from home, and now I had to host families all across the country. And going back to, anyone ever been to Oregon, Washington before? It's kind of funny because the rain starts coming down right when you cross the border. Anyone want to guess what I did in Las Vegas now that you see the vehicles in Las Vegas area? What do you think I did in Las Vegas? Blackjack dealer? All right. I tried every casino. All rejected. All rejected. Okay, I'll show you guys. I was a reverend here. Russ and Molly. We were gathered here today on December 5th. And by the way, I was more nervous than they, and they just met each other, by the way. So anyways, Vegas weddings, that was one of the jobs that did not hire me full time. I was really nervous actually to read vows, and it was just awkward because, you know, knowing that they just met each other, and they're paying $50 through a walk-up window or drive-through wedding. It was just too crazy for me. But, that experience gave me a confidence to go into another role, which was Border Patrol in Arizona. They actually told me it was impossible to get the job, but I love that word, impossible, by this stage in the journey. So I called up every local sector in Arizona. They all declined me. I called up the headquarters, wrote them a really nice, elaborate letter about what I wanted to do. They said, you have to be a journalist, like a proven journalist with a press badge. And so I called up all the local media outlets in Arizona asking if I could be a guest reporter or a guest reporter, and found a very small publication that enabled me to get the press badge. So this really shows you just be resourceful. If the why is strong enough, the how becomes easy. So my why was so strong to become a Border Patrol agent. I was going to do whatever it took, even if I had to steal someone's uniform and carry my own gun. I was going to be putting. I'm just joking. Don't do that. But yeah, this is 40 pounds of marijuana. If you're curious what that looks like, how they walk along the highway. This is the dope room. I would fill up every half an hour of drugs. I would ask them, well, what do you guys do with this? They said that they burn it. I don't know really what they meant by that, but yeah. What an industry Border Patrol is, by the way. You guys hear stories on the news all the time now, but it is a crazy industry. You could call it an industry because there's thousands, millions of dollars going across that border. So now we're in the middle of the country. I'm going to oil fields of Oklahoma, now to Mississippi, where I was inspired by the food. I didn't recognize a thing on my plate. Everything is brown from being deep fried, as you see, even the water. That's sweet tea, just joking. But sweet tea is like water in the South. I was actually a high school football coach in Alabama, the state over, and the Gatorade container on the sidelines was filled with sweet tea. But yeah, I didn't recognize anything. Fried catfish, hush puppies, never heard of it. I ended up